Good evening and welcome to the National Press Club. My name is Larry Lippman. I'm the executive editor for State News for the AARP Bulletin and a member of the Press Club's Book and Author Committee. Before we get to our speaker, I'd like to mention some upcoming book wraps here at the National Press Club. This Wednesday, August 3rd, we will have a book wrap with former NPR commentator Juan Williams, who will discuss his book, Muzzled: The Assaults on Honest Debate. On September 26th, Governor Mitch Daniels will discuss his book, Keeping the Republic, Saving America by Trusting Americans. If you would like to get on our email list, see Mr. Motherall right here, who has a sign-in sheet, and we'll be happy to put you on our list of Press Club book events. I first met Bob Graham 33 years ago when he was a young state senator with black hair running for governor in a crowded field of mostly senior state officials running in the Democratic primary. I'd just been assigned to the Orlando Sentinel's Tallahassee Bureau. Bob Graham came in second in that primary, which forced a runoff. The night before the second primary, I had dinner with a bunch of Florida reporters who were covering the race, and we went around the table predicting who would win the next day. And everyone there, with the exception of one person, who was not me, predicted that Bob Graham would lose the next morning to Attorney General Bob Shevin. So much for the wisdom of the Florida Press Corps. Of course, Bob Graham won the runoff and then went on to serve 2 terms as governor and 3 terms as the United States Senator from Florida. The highlight of that career undoubtedly came 12 years ago when he and Mickey Mouse installed me as president of the National Press Club. Also of note, Senator Graham was chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee on September 11, 2001, and chaired the joint House-Senate inquiry into the terrorist attacks of that day. He famously asked the question of why the intelligence community had failed to connect the dots that might have revealed the conspiracy before the attacks. Now in his book, The Keys to the Kingdom, Senator Graham, who bears a striking similarity to one of the characters in the book, referred to once there as Doodle, connects a few more of the dots. Since leaving the Senate, Senator Bob Graham has served as a senior fellow at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University and was appointed by President Obama to co-chair the Bipartisan National Commission on the BP oil spill and chair the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission. Senator Graham will discuss his book, and then we'll take questions for about a half an hour, whatever time we need. And then he will sign copies of the book, which is available outside if you haven't already purchased it. All the sales here at the National Press Club at all of our book wraps benefit the Eric Friedheim Library at the National Press Club, and that's why we restrict the books to those sold here at the book wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm National Press Club welcome to former governor and former senator and now author Bob Graham.
Thank you very much. I particularly want to thank Larry for all the confidence that he has demonstrated in my political career. I've been following Larry around for a long time. When I arrived in Tallahassee as governor, Larry was the president of the Capitol Press Club. The Capitol Press Club has as one of its annual premier events a dinner featuring skits. I had never been to one of these dinners before I became governor, and therefore I was not prepared for the total laceration that all politicians took at this event. Afterwards, I went to Larry with what I thought was a modest and fair and balanced suggestion, and that was that the politicians should be given some opportunity to put on skits about our brethren in journalism. You have never seen the First Amendment shut down so fully as it was that night, and therefore I had to think of clandestine ways to get on stage during these skits. And the last of my efforts was in my last year as governor when I appeared in a white military uniform with a big sash and a large sword as governor for life, bringing dignity back to dictatorship. And then, as Larry said, we followed him again here as he became the distinguished president of the National Press Club. So we congratulate Larry for his long and illustrious career. There are a few other people, if I could mention. My number 2 son-in-law, that's just in the sequence of marriage. Tom Gibson is here with our triplet granddaughters. If Tom and Adele and Kendall and Ansley would please stand. I'm not very objective because I think that's a pretty impressive group of grandchildren, all of which to have arrived on the same day. I also want to recognize Carolyn and Mark Olshaker. Mark was at my right hand throughout most of this process and was a very, very valuable assistant in this and a very wonderful personal friend. So I thank you. He's a big Nationals fan, so at least for tonight, they got a winning record. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about a book that represented 5 years of my life. I started working on this book in 2006 and finished it earlier this year. I'm going to talk a little bit about that background, but let me first announce that this is going to be a debt ceiling-free zone, at least until we reach the point that you might have some questions about that topic. I do think that as we are now within 6 weeks of the 10th anniversary of that tragic event, that there are some similarities between what's been happening now and what happened almost 10 years ago. One of those things is the fact that our country has been accepting of higher and higher levels of secrecy, of non-transparency. When Abraham Lincoln was president, he made it a point that every communication that went in or out of the State Department was treated as a public document. From that standard, we have descended into a high degree of non-transparency, I think very much to the disadvantage and disservice of the people of this country. One of the questions that I get is, why did you write this book? You'd written 3 nonfiction books. You had been in politics most of your life. What caused you to think that you could write a novel? Well, the first answer to that question is anger. I had chaired with my colleague Porter Goss, the congressional inquiry into 9/11. And at the end of that inquiry, we'd spent a year. We had a staff of 50 to 60 people. We'd read millions of pages, interviewed hundreds of people. But I came away with a sense that there were still some important unanswered questions, and that most of those questions revolved around the full role of Saudi Arabia in 9/11, and why had our government gone to such lengths to cover that up. Just briefly, some of the specific issues that raise those questions. What we do know is that the first 2 of the 19 hijackers, both of whom were Saudi citizens, came into the United States through the Los Angeles airport in January of 2000. We also know that within less than 2 weeks of their arrival, they were approached by a man who had been categorized by the FBI as an agent of the Saudi government, with a suggestion that they move from Los Angeles to San Diego, and with the representation that he would provide full support should they do so. They did, and he did. He was facilitated in his ability to provide full support because of a job that he had, which was called a ghost job. He received a check periodically, but never was expected to show up for work. His real job was to monitor young Saudis living in Southern California to see if any of them were harboring plots that might be threatening to the monarchy. He was one of a number of agents of the Saudi government around the world with that same responsibility. But as soon as these 2 men came